Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni. 157 verses from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel Thien Thai in the USA. If one holds oneself dear, one should protect oneself well. During every one of the 3 watches the wise man should keep vigil. The Blessed One spoke this verse to awaken the mind to the constant responsibility of self-care and mindfulness. To hold oneself dear is to recognize the preciousness of human life, rare and full of potential, capable of nurturing understanding, virtue, and liberation. There was once a young monk in a remote monastery who cherished his own well-being but failed to cultivate vigilance in thought, speech, and action. During the night, while others rested in mindful awareness, he allowed his attention to waver, thinking himself secure, believing that carelessness could bring no harm. Slowly, subtle habits of distraction, attachment, and irritation arose. These habits, unnoticed and unrestrained, grew and accumulated like cracks in a dam. By the time the monk realized the consequences of his neglect, the mind had been weakened by unobserved impulses, allowing restlessness and unwholesome thoughts to dominate his consciousness. The verse illuminates the principle that vigilance is the shield of the mind. Just as a skilled guardian protects a precious treasure, one who values life and the opportunity for practice maintains watchfulness over thoughts, speech, and conduct. The wise man, aware of the 3 watches, morning, day, and night, remains alert to the arising of craving, aversion, and delusion. The 3 watches are not merely hours of the day, but represent the continual awareness of the mind's activities. The ceaseless vigilance required to cultivate virtue and insight. By keeping watch during the morning, the mind is attentive to the freshness of a new day, observing the arising of thoughts before they become habitual, before attachment or aversion can gain momentum. During the day, the mind faces innumerable distractions, challenges, and opportunities. Here, vigilance is the steady guiding principle, ensuring that conduct aligns with virtue and wisdom. By keeping watch at night, one safeguards the mind during rest, preventing the subtle intrusion of unwholesome patterns into dreams or subconscious tendencies, and consolidating the strength gained through mindful living. The young monk, learning through experience, discovered that the lack of vigilance brings sorrow, regret, and difficulty in practice. He observed how thoughts unguarded could lead to speech that harms, actions that produce suffering, and habits that perpetuate delusion. The Blessed One's teaching guided him to recognize that true protection is not the avoidance of external harm alone, but the cultivation of inner vigilance, self-restraint, and clear awareness. The mind, once trained, becomes its own guardian. By diligently observing each thought, each intention, each impulse, one ensures that energy is not squandered on unwholesome action. Ethical conduct arises naturally from this vigilance, and insight grows steadily, like a well-watered plant in fertile soil. The story illustrates a universal truth. Human life, so precious and rare, cannot be preserved solely by physical means. Even the strongest body, the most comfortable surroundings, and the absence of external danger do not safeguard the mind. Only through watchfulness, through conscious care of the mind's tendencies and habits, is life fully protected. The monk learned that by attending to the mind with diligence and care, he could respond skillfully to arising conditions, observe impermanence without fear, restrain attachment without suppression, and cultivate compassion without indulgence. This practice, in turn, strengthened his capacity to act wisely, support others, and progress steadily toward liberation. The verse also emphasizes the connection between self-protection and the care of others. By safeguarding one's own mind, the wise become capable of benefiting others. The light of vigilance illuminates the path not only for oneself, but also for those who seek guidance, inspiration, or example. One who is watchful and mindful naturally fosters harmony, understanding, and compassion in interactions, transforming the world through the ripples of careful, ethical conduct. Reflecting further, the Blessed One's disciples saw that vigilance is not a rigid state of fear or anxiety, but a gentle, continuous awareness, attentive to the arising and passing of phenomena. It is a nurturing attentiveness that observes thoughts, emotions, and impulses without clinging or aversion, recognizing their impermanent and conditioned nature. This practice, cultivated across all hours, the 3 watches, prepares the mind to act with clarity, restraint, and compassion. The 3 watches remind practitioners that the opportunity for mindfulness and vigilance is constant. Life does not pause, and neither should the wise allow negligence to govern the mind. The morning watch cultivates fresh insight and energy. The nighttime watch consolidates understanding, protects rest, and preserves the mind's integrity. Through these practices, the disciple learns that holding oneself dear is inseparable from cultivating awareness, restraint, and insight. To value life is to cherish the mind's capacity for understanding, to protect it from harm, and to direct it toward liberation and the welfare of all beings. The verse, therefore, guides both internal cultivation and external conduct. By being watchful, the practitioner prevents harm arising from unwholesome thoughts, words, and deeds, while simultaneously nurturing the conditions for insight, peace, and compassion to flourish. In this way, vigilance becomes a source of strength, stability, and enduring protection. The monk, embracing this teaching, transformed his life. Each day, he observed his thoughts and intentions, restrained unwholesome habits, cultivated kindness, and reflected on impermanence and the preciousness of life. Over time, the pond of his mind filled with clarity, the bow of his energy strengthened, and he became a living example of how diligence, vigilance, and care for oneself lead to liberation and the welfare of all beings. The verse reminds all who hear it that protection of the self is not selfishness, but wisdom. To hold oneself dear is to cultivate the faculties that sustain insight, virtue, and compassion. Neglect invites sorrow, distraction, and the accumulation of unwholesome tendencies. Diligence in thought, speech, and action safeguards the mind, prepares the practitioner for awakening, and creates conditions of benefit for all beings. By keeping watch during the 3 watches, the wise ensure that no opportunity is lost, no moment of practice wasted, and no tendency towards suffering left unattended. In this way, life becomes a continuous opportunity for cultivation, protection, and the realization of the Dhamma's enduring truth. The disciple learns that each thought, each intention, and each action matters. Vigilance is not a burden but a gift, a manifestation of care for oneself and all beings. Through careful attention, restraint, and understanding, the practitioner transforms the fleeting hours of life into enduring wealth, securing clarity, peace, and liberation for oneself, and becoming a source of light for all who follow. The wise practitioner reflects that vigilance is not only an act of preservation, but also a cultivation of freedom. By keeping watch over the mind during each of the 3 watches, one becomes aware of the subtle movements of thought, the arising of desire, aversion, and delusion before they gain power. The night watch, often overlooked, is particularly important, for even when the body rests, the mind continues to turn, carrying with it habits, attachments, and unwholesome tendencies. A novice once shared with the Blessed One how he struggled with restlessness in the night, unable to find peace, and how troubling thoughts would linger, arising like shadows in the darkness. The Buddha advised him to treat the mind as a precious jewel, to protect it with gentle attention, and to remain aware during every watch, observing the breath, noting the nature of thoughts, and practicing meditation even in moments of apparent inactivity. The 3 watches are a metaphor not only for temporal vigilance, but for constant mindfulness in all conditions, wakefulness, activity, and repose. In every moment, the mind either nurtures liberation or allows the seeds of suffering to grow. By attending carefully, the practitioner strengthens insight, restrains unwholesome habits, and maintains clarity. This vigilance is not rigid or forced, but gentle and deliberate, like the attentive care of a gardener tending to a delicate sapling. Every thought is observed, every intention guided, every impulse restrained, and every action directed toward benefit, both for oneself and for all beings. The practitioner sees that life is precious and fleeting, that every hour offers the potential for cultivation, and that negligence invites sorrow and delusion. By practicing vigilance diligently, the mind becomes its own protector, its own guide, and its own source of nourishment. One who holds oneself dear does not indulge in unwholesome desires, does not allow distraction to dominate, and does not let attachment and aversion cloud perception. Instead, the mind is clear, attentive, and responsive, able to act with compassion, wisdom, and restraint. Over time, this daily practice transforms the heart, strengthens understanding, and deepens insight into the nature of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Even the smallest act of awareness, when performed consistently across the 3 watches, compounds into lasting clarity, resilience, and virtue. The verse also reminds the practitioner that self-protection is inseparable from care for others. A mind that is vigilant, restrained, and clear naturally extends benefit outward, expressing kindness, patience, and compassion in every interaction. Just as a shield protects the body from harm, vigilance protects the mind from unwholesome tendencies, ensuring that speech, action, and thought generate benefit rather than suffering. In daily life, this may appear in countless small ways: speaking with honesty and kindness, acting without harm, observing ethical precepts, reflecting on impermanence, and practicing mindfulness in ordinary moments. The continuous practice of vigilance trains the mind to respond wisely, not reactively, to the ever-changing circumstances of life. The disciple learns that each moment matters. The morning watch cultivates fresh awareness and energy, allowing the mind to begin the day with clarity. The daytime watch maintains mindfulness amid activity, preventing distraction and unwholesome action. The nighttime watch consolidates insight, stabilizes attention, and preserves mental clarity during rest. Together, these practices create a continuous shield of awareness, nurturing the mind, guiding action, and preparing for liberation. In contemplating the verse, the seeker sees that to hold oneself dear is to cherish the mind as the most valuable possession, to protect it with diligence, and to act in ways that sustain insight and virtue. Neglect invites sorrow, restlessness, and suffering. Diligence, gentle attention, and continuous vigilance cultivate the qualities that lead to awakening and bring benefit to all beings. The practitioner realizes that the mind is the foundation of all experience, and that careful, consistent attention across every watch is the means by which life becomes meaningful, purposeful, and aligned with the path of the Dhamma. Through this insight, vigilance transforms from a task into a natural expression of care, compassion, and wisdom, allowing the mind to act skillfully, sustain peace, and illuminate the path for oneself and for all beings who follow. The practitioner understands that vigilance is not simply a defensive measure, but an expression of love toward oneself. To hold oneself dear is to recognize that life is rare and precious, and that each moment offers the opportunity to cultivate virtue, wisdom, and compassion, just as a gardener tends to young plants, shielding them from harsh weather and nourishing them with care. The mind must be observed, protected, and cultivated with patience and dedication. Each thought that arises, each intention that stirs within the heart, is an opportunity for mindfulness and restraint. Inattention allows unwholesome tendencies to grow. Vigilance nurtures clarity, compassion, and insight. The wise recognize that life passes swiftly, that the mind can be led astray in an instant, and that even a single moment of negligence may have consequences that extend far beyond the present. By attending to the mind during every watch, the practitioner transforms ordinary life into practice, ordinary actions into vessels of merit, and ordinary moments into opportunities for awakening. The three watches, morning, day, and night, serve as reminders of the constancy of opportunity, the continual presence of the mind, and the necessity of care. By maintaining awareness in all conditions, one strengthens the mind as its own protector, ensuring that insight and virtue flourish. The Blessed One often spoke of the impermanence of life and the fleeting nature of worldly pleasures. Those who neglect vigilance are like travelers who leave their homes unguarded, vulnerable to harm and loss. Yet those who cultivate careful attention, mindful reflection, and ethical conduct create an inner refuge, a place of safety, clarity, and peace that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. The wise practitioner realizes that true protection comes from within. By observing thoughts, restraining impulses, and acting with mindfulness, the mind becomes resilient, stable, and capable of discerning the arising of suffering and the path to its cessation. Vigilance nurtures insight into impermanence, the nature of craving, and the law of cause and effect. It allows the practitioner to see clearly the conditions that lead to suffering and to act in ways that bring benefit and liberation. This vigilance is gentle yet firm, like a lamp that illuminates darkness without consuming itself. Over time, the steady practice of watchfulness transforms the practitioner. Thoughts become more refined, actions more skillful, and the heart more compassionate. The mind, once easily distracted, becomes strong, resilient, and attuned to the subtleties of impermanence and the interconnection of all beings. Vigilance is not merely a discipline, but a source of profound freedom, allowing the practitioner to live fully, respond wisely, and cultivate peace in all circumstances. The Blessed One taught that the mind is the basis of all experience. By protecting the mind through vigilance, one safeguards the opportunity for awakening, the ability to act with skill, and the capacity to bring benefit to others. Ethical conduct arises naturally from this attentiveness, and insight deepens steadily. The practitioner learns that each moment is precious. To be awake to thoughts, intentions, and actions in the morning, throughout the day, and even in the night ensures that the mind remains under careful cultivation, that unwholesome tendencies are restrained, and that wisdom and compassion grow unimpeded. Through these practices, life becomes a continuous field of training, reflection, and mindful care. The verse reminds all who hear it that self-protection is not selfishness. To hold oneself dear is to cultivate the mind as the most valuable treasure, to act in ways that sustain insight, virtue, and compassion, and to prevent harm from arising through neglect. The diligent practitioner, watchful through every watch, experiences the fruits of practice, clarity of perception, stability of mind, ethical conduct, and the capacity to benefit others. The story of the monk, who learned through experience the necessity of vigilance, teaches that even subtle negligence can have consequences. Yet consistent, mindful attention transforms the mind, strengthens character, and prepares one for liberation. By observing the three watches and holding oneself dear, the practitioner creates conditions for insight to arise, for wisdom to mature, and for compassion to manifest fully in every action. The mind, trained through continuous vigilance, becomes a source of stability, clarity, and peace, capable of guiding speech, conduct, and intention with precision and care. In this way, the Blessed One guides all beings to understand that vigilance is both protection and cultivation, that self-care is inseparable from mindfulness and insight, and that each moment, observed with attention and care, builds resilience, virtue, and clarity. Life, though fleeting and impermanent, becomes meaningful, purposeful, and directed toward awakening when the mind is guarded with diligence. Thus, the verse inspires all practitioners to keep watch through the three watches, to protect the mind, to cherish life, and to cultivate the qualities that lead to liberation. In doing so, one secures enduring peace, profound understanding, and the ability to benefit all beings. The mind, once trained, becomes its own guardian, its own source of nourishment, and its own instrument for awakening. The Blessed One's teaching reminds us that vigilance is the path to freedom, the means to protect what is most precious, and the foundation for ethical conduct, insight, and compassion. By holding oneself dear, maintaining watchfulness, and cultivating the mind with continuous care, one walks steadily upon the path of the Dhamma, bringing clarity, peace, and liberation to oneself and radiating benefit to all beings. Thank you for watching my video. Namo Amitabha. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.